The Lost Worlds of Ancient America, Compelling Evidence of Ancient Immigrants, Lost Technologies, and Places of Power. Edited by Frank Joseph, forward by John DeSalvo, PhD. All right, we're going to go to chapter 1 here. And it says here, California's Buried Altar and Monument to the Great Flood by Frank Joseph. It says here, the recent and dramatic find of a foreign, pre-Columbian artifact in Western America is also among the most convincing of its kind ever made. The stone block's discovery under conditions beyond all possibilities of fraud, plus the nature of its identity, represent a truly revealing discovery. Not very far away, another monolith is inscribed with one of the largest, most complex examples of rock art. Both objects are clues to the mysterious prehistory of the Golden State, all right? Very interesting information here, something they found in California. Again, going well with what we've already gone over about California, very ancient land, we all know that. So we're gonna see what they found over there. Shortly after the turn of the 21st century, an old house was being torn down in a western neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. After its demolition, workers began digging up the backyard in preparation for a new construction. At 5 feet beneath the surface, their shovels struck something unexpectedly bulky and solid. Persistent excavation brought to light a sculpted monolith, 3.4 feet tall, with a base measurement of 1.7 by 1.6 feet. The reddish, igneous block is almost perfectly rectangular in shape, weighs 228 pounds, and shows the effect of having been buried in acidic soil for many centuries. All right, they found this artifact here, this monolith, and you hear what they're saying? It's been buried there for many centuries. Abstract lines and semicircles identically cover either side, while more than halfway up the broader front, the likeness of a human head partially emerges from the center in bas relief, surrounded by engraved ridges, suggesting a hairstyle terminating below the head in large twin curls. The oblate facial features are carefully molded, although details are sparse. Small eyes and mouth are depicted, with possible remnants of a nose and a brow. These carvings resemble nothing similar to indigenous Californian or even North American tribal imagery. They are utterly unlike anything found in Native American art, either prehistoric or contemporary. Indian material culture did not include monumental stone sculpture. All right, so this is what they're talking about here, guys, okay? They found this buried, and it's a centuries old. After a cursory examination during a recent exhibition at the Public Broadcasting System's well-known Antiques Roadshow, all right, PBS, television program, an appraiser archaeologist could offer no opinion, save that the large object, judging from its soil stains, was at least 500 years old, but probably much older. Curators from the Archaeology Department of the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles have not been able to add anything to the appraiser's limited assessment, although they did not question the unique artwork's pre-Columbian provenance. Its precise age, original purpose, significance of its illustrated surface, or identity of its creators escaped them. Owners of the monolith shared what little they know of their accidental find with Ancient American, on conditions of personal anonymity and privacy concerning the undisclosed whereabouts of their discovery. It must forever remain an insoluble mystery, so long as mainstream scholars restrict their investigation within the borders of pre-Columbian North America. In the light of the outside world, however, the artifact stands revealed. Its full face, sculpted relief with stylized headdress and crude, though effective execution, finds its close likeness in the ancient old world deity. All right, this is the true old world. It's what they're finding here. Beginning with the mid-16th century BC, the Phoenicians began to assert their separate identity and emerged from the other Semitic peoples of Canaan, a kingdom roughly corresponding to the region encompassing modern-day Israel. I dodged a hijack. It's not over there. That ain't the promised land. We've already gone over the information. If you're new, make sure to catch the previous presentations. It's been 5 years here. It's been a long journey. We're still learning. All right. So that's the hijack right there about that Israel, Palestine, and all that stuff. All right, and then he's gonna say the Lebanese are descendants of Phoenicians. Well, maybe, maybe not. Well, it's kind of generalizing, but who's the Phoenicians? All right, we're eventually gonna get to that. So then they go on talking about, since they had the cedars of Lebanon, right, as the biblical ones, supposedly that's where they built the ships, and that's why they went all around the world. But we already know, right? We got the videos already. We know the gopher tree and all this stuff. They're using the cedars, these big cedars, where these trees are coming from already. We could read the navigational videos, how big these ships were cut out of one single tree, okay, fitting 150 people. Talking about cedars of Lebanon, right? Place of whiteness, right? So Dutch the hijack with all this Africa part and over there, Mediterranean, Middle East, their fake locations. So continuing the second paragraph right here, it says, among the Phoenicians' most beloved deities was Ashtart, their version of the much earlier Sumerian Inanna. She was the divine patroness of both fertility and war, life and death. Twin aspects embodied her celestial light, the planet Venus, rising in the east as the morning star and setting in the west as the evening star. 11th century BC Phoenician cosmologist Saint Shuniaton portrayed her as the mighty one, wandering through the world, an appropriate conception for the far-ranging Phoenicians whose sailors prayed to her as Our Lady of the Sea. All right, do you hear that? So they're trying to correlate something here. So they're teaching you about this deity, this Phoenician deity, because that's what they found here in California. That's what they're going to tell you. You'll see. When they arrived in Egypt as traders and settlers, what Egypt? The real Egypt, right over here, the Nile. What Egypt? Egypt is a Greek word. Temple of Ptah or the Temple of Ptah. Menes, Memphis, on the Nile, Mississippi, on the Mississippi, the great river. Okay. So let's not get sidetracked when they say when they arrived in Egypt as traders and settlers. Ashtart was welcomed as a popular import by their host, assuming some features of an indigenous goddess. Hathor, particularly her iconic headdress with its bouffant configuration ending in two close-fitting curls on either side of the head. Thereafter, Ashtart was usually portrayed wearing the stylized headdress wherever the Phoenicians traveled, as evidenced by one of their bronze figures of the goddess from Carranzo, Spain. The Egyptians worshipped her as Kadashu during the 18th and 19th dynasties, from 1550 until 1200 BC. What Egyptians are? The Tamari. When the two peoples had a falling out, a prayer to Ashtart Kadashu found in Egypt at a Phoenician burial was probably a standard text dedicated to the deity whenever she was venerated. Praise Lady of the stars of heaven, mistress of all gods, may she grant life, welfare, prosperity, and health. Mayest thou grant that I behold thy beauty daily. All right, that's what it said supposedly on the tablet. Although the countenance protruding from the Los Angeles Monolith wears a Hathor headdress, it does not belong to that Egyptian goddess or Kadashu, because neither deity was ever so cruelly depicted in the Nile Valley. Phoenician divinities, on the contrary, were often coarsely portrayed, such as the photograph example included here from 8th century BC, Hadrumetum, a Phoenician colony in Tunisia, North Africa, or Ashtart engraved image. Its resemblance to the California figure, wholly unlike any other representation of this god, is unmistakable, okay? You hear that? It's basically the same, he's saying. Moreover, the face-forward style was diagnostic of Phoenician sculpted art. All right, this is what they're finding in California. So this is a stone representation of Phoenician goddess Ashtart from Hadrumetum, North Africa, 800 BC, supposedly, right? And this is the one they found in Los Angeles, the Monolith. Now you see the headdress that goes down right here. This is what they're talking about, and the eyes very. All right, you see, like the head. They say headdress, it looks like hair to me, but the same with the eyes, right? With the decline of Egyptian and Mycenaean Greek influence on the Aegean world, after the 13th century BC, the Phoenicians were free to exploit the rest of the Mediterranean Sea and beyond throughout the Atlantic realm, where colonies were established in western Morocco and Iberia, They are known to have brought back oranges from Canary Islands together with a costly purple dye, the Purpura murex found in a rare sea snail shell from Madeira, and they left a hoard of coins on the even more remote Azore island of Corbu. The Los Angeles Monolith is physical proof they sailed further. Alright, so I just want to go ahead and stop there just to get you guys a reference, because I know they keep trying to tell us that Phoenicians are coming from a fake Holy Land. Alright, so let's just understand that. And so, where's the true promised land? Where is Canaan, the true promised land, the terrestrial paradise? Let's not forget. The Phoenicians were coming out of here. That's why you find statues like this here. They've seen it in reverse. Yeah, they went over there to Iberia and Morocco, yes. And not just there, but the Ireland or the Emerald Islands, right? The British Islands. All right, future video, again, we're going to go over this. I'm going to break this down. So just starts the hijack with the false orientations they're trying to give us, right? All right, so they're saying they went all the way to Los Angeles. Well, they were. Of course, they were all the way over here. That's right next to Utah. Utah. Like other objects of its kind, the sculpted block confirms in size and rectangular cubic shape to a stone altar for the worship of Ashtart, the Lady of the Sea, who safely brought Phoenician visitors to the west coast of our continent more than 2,000 years ago. So they're seeing it in reverse. Again, the lost worlds of ancient America, compelling evidence of ancient immigrants, lost technologies, and places of power. Edited by Frank Joseph, forward by John DeSalvo. Another California monolith is better known, but hardly less revealing of foreign travelers to our continent in prehistory. Standing alone on the side of a boulder-strewn mountain, one of America's most perfect works of ancient rock art faces a broad valley, just west from the town of Hemet, some 90 miles southeast of the Los Angeles Ashtart Monolith. A massive gray egg-shaped stone is emblazoned with the intricate design of a labyrinthine maze enclosed in a 3.5-foot square. Although rarely visited, the large image is surrounded by a metal fence topped with a barbed wire in the center of a 5.75-acre public preserve set up more than 40 years ago, known as the Maidstone County Park. Even so, few Americans are aware of its existence. All right, so real quick, this is what they're talking about right here. All right, you see they got this pictograph right here, prehistoric. And you see all these boulders. Wow, look at this place. So much going on here. All right, so this is what they're talking about. This is what he was saying about it being fenced in and barbed wire and all that. Okay. Just want to read this right here. It says Maidstone. This pictograph representing a maze is an outstanding example of the work of prehistoric people. It, with 5.75 acres of land, was donated to Riverside County as a county park on April 16, 1956 by Mr. and Mrs. Roger E. Miller. All right, so prehistoric. All right, prehistoric. Let's go back to the book. The anciently illustrated boulder is covered with a light patina referred to by locals as desert varnish. This results from a process of natural oxidation and may be used for dating the maze someday, after scientists are able to more precisely evaluate the percentage of change in mineral elements laid down on hard surfaces over time. Desert varnish likewise appears within the carbon itself, although to a lesser extent than occurs over the rest of the boulder, which geologists estimate has been exposed in its present location after tumbling down from higher up the mountain about 15,000 years ago. 15,000 years ago. The maze is actually a swastika, okay? They say swastika. And we know this symbol was over here, like the cross and all that, before any religions, before they told us what it meant, before anybody grabbed it, like Germans, you know. It was a symbol known to numerous American Indian tribes across the continent from at least Hopewellian times, beginning around 200 BC, when some of the earliest surviving examples were made of copper. What it meant to these prehistoric people has not come down to us, but the modern-day Hopi preserve among their most important oral traditions an account of ancestral origins from a great flood that practically annihilated mankind. They believe that relatively few survivors migrated from the eastern location of the deluge, finally settling in the American Southwest. To the Hopi, this mass migration of their grandfathers is signified by the counterclockwise hooked cross, signifying the mass migration of their ancestors from the east. All right, so you guys hear that? So they're saying the Hopi, there was a great deluge, and a lot of the survivors migrated to the southwest from the east coast. All right, from the east coast and the northeast. Whether or not it's the same symbolism that motivated the ancient carvers of the Hemet maze is not known, but whatever it represents, it must have stood for something of real importance to merit such high artistic efforts. To say nothing of its prominent placement on a mountainside, clearly, it was originally meant to be seen and appreciated by many people. Got a picture here that says of California archaeologist William Donato at the Hemet Maze Stone. Outstanding art as the Hemet petroglyph may be, it is neither the only nor the largest, though perhaps the most finely executed, of its kind in Southern California. There are actually several other stone mazes in the immediate vicinity. Something similar in nearby Ramona was accidentally found by hikers in 1977 after heavy rains exposed the design. They took it to San Jacinto Town Hall, where it was displayed until politicians, ignorant of what else to do with the discovery, presented it to gracious, if perplexed, tribal leaders of the neighboring Sabota Indians, who continued to preserve the maze as their heirloom of a distant past of which they know nothing. They know nothing of this, right? So is it really theirs? So far, about 50 maze stones have been identified throughout Orange, Riverside, Imperial, and San Diego, all right? 50 maze stones in these places right here. At least 14 examples of labyrinthine rock art are known in a remote area of Palm Springs, contributing to their mystery. All of them have been found within 150 miles of each other, and virtually every one is rectangular, although varying in size from 4 inches to several feet in diameter. They are invariably located on mountainsides remarkably alike in their boulder-dotted settings. Here too, Hopi myth seems to fit the evidence, because the flood story recounts that, as the waters rose to cover the ancestral island, its residents climbed mountainsides to escape drowning. All right? And you find this story around the world. The largest and most intricate design occurs 10 miles north of Hemet. As an example of the Dark Age mentality abroad in our land, the magnificent 4-foot square relic was partially obliterated by 4 shotgun blasts in the early 1960s, but enough of it survived to yield faint traces of red, mineral-based paint that originally filled the glyph. Subsequent investigation of other maze carvings showed they likewise bore hints in varying degrees of red paint, an important discovery that may assist further in dating their creation, at least relative to each other. The less obvious the presence of red paint, the older the petroglyph. The Hemet stone evidences no indication of red, so it was either never painted or it is the oldest maze, its paint having been weathered away over time. In the Hopi crown dance, the flood is recounted by a chief speaker who begins, "I remember the old red land, the birthplace of his ancestors before it went under the waves." Every Indian tribe recounted its own version of a global inundation and the flight of ancestral survivors from the east over the Atlantic Ocean. Remarkably, this foundation myth was not imported along with the proselytizing efforts of 16th through 19th century Christian missionaries, but predated their arrival by unknown generations. Accordingly, Native American recollection of the cataclysm did not originate in the biblical Genesis, although both share some details. Interestingly, as the swastika signified North American Hopi predecessor migration from that catastrophe, the hooked cross was likewise the symbol of pre-Columbian Mexico's Chalchihuitlicu, the Aztec goddess of the deluge. Her myth told how she changes victims into fish, the same transformation recounted by the flood myths of the Babylonians and American Lakota Sioux. Chalchihuitlicu, Our Lady of the Turquoise Skirt, a reference to the sea, was commemorated during an annual ceremony in which priests collected reeds, dried them out, then placed them inside her shrine. As writing utensils, the reeds symbolize wisdom, for which her lost, overseas homeland, the place of reeds, was renowned as Aslan, the place of reeds, Red River, the Reeds River, or the Red River, Colorado. What are we talking about here? Phonetic and mythic resemblances to the Greek Atlantis are inescapable. Indeed, temple art represented Chalchiutlicu, seated on a throne surrounded by men and women drowning in huge whirlpools. Perhaps California's formerly red mesas were meant to preserve the same tradition as ceremonial markers for ritual pilgrimages, an imitation of a great migration from some natural disaster undertaken by its survivors.